get started. Hopefully you are in either the English or the Chinese translation, wherever is more appropriate for you and where you're more comfortable. Good evening, and thank you so much for coming. My name is Marcella Marlowe, and as I hope most of you know, I'm the city manager for the city of San Marino. I've been with you for over 4 years, and I am delighted to continue my service here to you all in the community. Let's see, so let's just get started. We're going to kick off tonight's town hall, making sense of our annual budget process. Joining me tonight is Paul Chung, who is our finance director, and Nicole Quadras, who is our community engagement manager, and of course, Councilmember Ken Udy, who needs no introduction, who serves as one of our 2 budget and finance liaisons, along with our current mayor, Susan Jacobowski, who isn't able to be with us tonight. So we will be your panel of experts tonight to share some information with you and answer whatever questions you might have. Here's a brief rundown of the program for tonight. We'll discuss how the city's budget advances the community's vision. And then Paul's going to provide an overview of municipal budgeting and the budget process. It's a little bit different in the public sector from the private sector, so we want to give you a little bit of a heads up about that. He'll review the current fiscal year budget, talk about considerations for next year's budget, and then finally we'll share with you how you can provide your feedback to us, which is very important on the budget process, and of course how you can stay informed about city programs and policies. All right, thank you so much. I'd like to invite you to type any questions that you have in the Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen during the presentation. We did get a couple of questions in advance, and so we'll start with those when we get to the Q&A portion. But if you have other questions, please put them in there and we will answer them time permitting. And whatever we don't have time to answer, we will be sure to answer and put up on our website so everybody gets the information that they are looking for. As you have noticed, we are also using a live interpreter tonight who will translate the English presentation into Mandarin. Yanen helped us out with the State of the City a couple of weeks ago with Mayor Jacobowski's State of the City presentation, and we got outstanding feedback. We are so honored that she is with us again tonight to help translate and increase our engagement with all of our community. This is our first time using this kind of a module with the simultaneous translation and the Zoom module and instantaneous translation, so bear with us. We look forward to getting your feedback on how it went and how we can do it better. We are always looking for suggestions and feedback for how we can improve. All right, Mr. Chung, please go ahead to the next slide. Wonderful. So a couple of years ago, when this council and I first arrived at the beginning of 2018, we held a strategic planning session. And staff with the elected officials created the city's vision and mission back in 2018. You can see the vision statement here, which is really a vision for the whole community. And then the mission statement is the mission for our city organization. And everybody felt strongly about this. It was a consensus vision and mission, and we are very excited about it. To achieve those 2 things, the council felt that there were 8 measures of whether we were the kind of San Marino that we wanted to be. And so they adopted what we call critical success factors, and there are 8 of them. Paul, why don't you go ahead and move to the next one so that we can see all 8. Thank you very much. So these are them. They're in no particular order. These were the things that the city council felt were important in 2018 to be the best San Marino that we can be. They have confirmed every year that this still feels right, that these still feel like the right measuring sticks. And so these are still the things that we use to guide all of our actions and all of our budget expenditures. So if you wonder where your tax dollars go, they go directly to the policies and programs and personnel that support these 8 critical success factors. When we think about new initiatives, the first consideration is whether it fits into one of these categories. If it doesn't, perhaps it's not something that we should be doing. So when we do our brainstorming, these are the items that frame the way that we think about things. So that's just an overview to kick us off into the budget process. And I think with that, I will go ahead and pass it off to Paul to dive into the numbers. Take it away, Mr. Finance Director.
Oh, thank you, City Manager. Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Chung, and I'm the Finance Director, and I've been here since November of 2019. And so for the majority of my career here, I've been under COVID, under the pandemic. Even though it seems like a short time, 2 years, it seems longer, being that it's been challenging, but also at the same time, and I'll touch on some of the COVID fiscal impacts that the city felt later in my slides, but I just want to express to the community that it's really an honor and privilege to be working for San Marino. So tonight, I'm really just going to keep it at a 30,000, 40,000 level budget process. But of course, if you have specific questions, please feel free to wait until the Q&A section, post your questions, and I'll be able to answer those questions for you. So let's begin. What is a budget? For the most part, that's money coming in and money going out. That's probably the most basic way to look at a budget. For the government side, the way I want to define it is the budget provides spending authority for the city to provide governmental services. So basically, it's the taxpayers' dollars, the community's dollars that goes in to, it comes into the city. And of course, we program that, plan that with the city council's approval, and then plan out for next year's budget. The budget that I have for you on the right side, that's our current adopted budget. So during every year, the city hall gets together and drafts a budget to the city council, the plan. And that happens with a combination of basically from all the executives to the council, to the community, and then all the way even down to the part-timers in the city. And I believe the best way to look at government budgeting versus kind of the private side is that on the government side, what we call is funds come into the city, and it's kind of in two buckets. One is restricted funding. A good example would be gas tax. When you pump your gas at the gas station, you pay a certain amount of taxes. That portion of that shuffles into the city of San Marino. And those restricted gas tax could only be spent on, let's say, road work. Can't pay for other things such as, let's say, for my salary or a rec specialist that provides services to community. Now, the other bucket of money will be the discretionary money. For instance, property taxes. That's where the discretionary money will come in. And that gives the city the discretionary funds to put it to operating costs to provide the government services for the community. Hold on one second. Let me get to the next slide here. One thing I'm very proud of is that this past year, we were able to get recognized by two of the big agencies, governmental agencies that reviews budgets. On the left side, we were awarded from the California Society of Municipal Finance Officers, or they call it CSMFO. And so they review the budget and recognize that our budget is transparent and also easy to read. And it provides the information that the community can decipher and understand and digest. Also on the right side, GFOA, which is the highest governing body, we're able to get recognized for the first time for the city, a certificate from GFOA as well for our budget process. And the reason I emphasize this certificate is to really recognize the fact that we get really good feedback from the reviewers, which consists of 3 finance directors or even city managers throughout the nation. And they review our budget and look for areas of improvement, areas where we really stand out, and provide that really critical feedback that helps us improve our budget and our budget process. The next slide I wanted to cover with the community is the annual budget cycle. So basically where we are and how this whole budget process gets drafted and then adopted. So if we look at the top of the circle, it says January, February. So this is basically when the budget process begins. And instead of going into the very intricacies and the details, I just wanted to touch on the highlights of the cycle. So back in January and February, we kicked off the budget process. The city manager has informed the council about the priority initiatives or the goals for next year. And we're in the process of gaining the critical feedback from the community of what the community wants for next year to implement into the budget. And as we go into February, on Wednesday night, I'll be presenting to the council the mid-year, 5-year, and the long-term forecast. That provides the foundation, the financial foundation that the city council can make big decisions on regards to how our fiscal condition or our status of our financial situation is, and so that they can make the big decisions when it's time to adopt the budget in May. And so we moved down to March and April. This is when really the departments all get together and pretty much go through our budget line by line. And the city manager and I, we scrutinize every budget line item to see what's going up, what's going down, why do we need these services? And so we go through that process in March and April. And then May is when the city manager will present the budget for council's approval or adoption of the budget. And then we will end the fiscal year June 30th. And then the whole cycle begins again. So in order for me to talk about our next year's budget, I wanted to highlight the foundation, our current adopted budget of this year. And our fiscal year begins July 1st and ends on June 30th. So first and foremost, I want to touch on our total revenues. So for our total revenues, majority of our revenues, about 69%, comes in the form of property taxes. And the total revenues for this year was expected to be $33.7 million. And I wanted to show this on the pie chart. As you can see, the big blue, the majority of that is from property taxes. But of course, we get other sources of revenues, such as utility users taxes from your electricity bills and your gas bills. We also get charges for service, which is for your permits, your rec services. And also a piece that I forgot to mention, the public safety parcel tax. That's another $3.5 million that the community voted to support public safety here for fire and police services for the community as well. As I mentioned, this graph here just shows the significance of property tax. As I mentioned, it's 69%, which includes not only the property tax, but the public safety parcel tax. And that equates to close to $22 million for our budget. And then of course, all the other revenues are a lot smaller. And when a finance director looks at property taxes being well over 50%, that really provides reliability and also predictability, and helps me sleep at night to know the fact that our revenue sources from property tax are the most consistent and reliable sources of revenues. And for instance, during this COVID time, a lot of local cities were hit really hard with the COVID closures, and especially cities that were relying on sales tax for the local businesses, and also TOT, which are transit occupancy taxes. Those are really hit hard during this economic downfall. And so with that said, for San Marino, we were able to really actually increase our revenues during this difficult time, being that our main source of revenue was property taxes. And I just wanted to now touch on the expenditure side of our budget. This is for the total budget is $41.1 million. And that really consists of two things. One is the operating budget, which is $28.6 million. That's where all the governmental services comes in to support all the community needs. And then there's the capital improvement program, which we budgeted $12.5 million. And that's all the infrastructure related projects, such as the roads, the medians, the street lights, and etc. That's included in this $12.5 million. This graph here, I wanted to show the community what that overall expenditure budget pays for. As you can see, the top two are the public safety expenditures, as we provide that service to the community. Police being the highest at 28%, and then fire. And as we trickle down, you can see that Public Works for the various capital intensive projects that they support for the community. And then of course, community development in regards to all the various permitting and plan checks that support the community needs. And then I'm not going to go into the very specifics, but you can see that the significant amount of our expenditure services are really the top 3 or 4 departments for the city. As I mentioned, our CIP budget, it consists of 2 budgets really. One, which is the main budget, it's our capital construction. That's our infrastructure projects, such as the road work, the upcoming San Marino Center budget, That all resides in our capital construction side of the budget. And then we also break that into another section called the capital equipment. And majority of that consists of equipment such as cars, our police vehicles, our fire trucks, our ambulances, and small things such as even computers, where we need to depreciate those assets. And so that resides on a smaller segment of our overall capital improvement budget. One thing I do wanted to highlight for the community is that since fiscal year 17-18, what the city council did with our new fiscal policy that was implemented was that we opened up a CIP fund to basically move any reserve monies, or what the private world calls net income, monies that are left over at the year end. We would go ahead and move, or the city council will approve and move it to the CIP fund so that we can pay for big capital projects. So as you can see in this chart, back in 17-18, the city council moved $15.1 million into the CIP fund. The following year, because we moved so much money, we didn't move additional money. But then in that 19-20 fiscal year, we moved another $5 million, and then another $3 million in 2021. So the total capital investment that the council has approved from the community's taxes basically is $23.1 million of capital funds that are now able to support all the various big, large infrastructure projects that the community sees and feels on a daily basis.
Paul, can I say something really quickly here?
Yes, sir.
Because for the community to know, this is a really big deal. Because before, the city council or the city never budgeted for capital improvements. And we have streets and sewers and sidewalks and assets that are aging that we need to take care of. So this council, with the help of the long-term strategic financial planning group, looked at how much money we really needed in the bank to cover our operating budget. And our operating budget every year, we're about what, Paul, like kind of $25 million is kind of the operating budget.
28 million, yes.
Yeah, and right now today, we have like $36 million in the bank across all of our accounts. So this council's intent was to move a bunch of the excess cash and put it to work. Because if you're a business person, you know, if you don't take care of your assets, it gets really expensive to repair them or replace them. So what we're doing is we're taking this total of $23 million and reinvesting it back into streets and sewers and sidewalks and assets and trees and all the things that are important. And it's, you know, I think that's a very significant contribution that we're making now to the city that prior councils and staff were really not focused on. Sorry, Paul, you're doing a great job.
No problem.
But this one is near and dear to me.
Thank you, Councilmember Udi. No, and just wanted to highlight, kind of piggybacking off of what Councilmember Udi mentioned, is that we do have a very robust 5-year CIP program that was implemented recently too as well, so that we have better planning and better utilization of these funds instead of holding on to money and keeping it into the bank. As mentioned by Councilmember Udi, it makes more sense to invest back into the community, where the community actually feels and touches the actual growth and the various infrastructures that you see on a daily basis. And so I believe that that's a great contribution and use of the community's tax dollars. And just kind of the last slide I have for the community is that as we go into the fiscal year 22-23, there are budget considerations. As I mentioned, the overall fiscal condition of the city is very healthy, but there are items that are red flags. As you probably felt in your wallet as yourself or your personal budget, inflation is, it's hard to pinpoint where inflation will be, but you're looking at about 3 to 10% increase in just cost overall next year. The city is also going into labor MOU negotiations, and so that will also impact the cost for next year. On the COVID fiscal impacts, I know I touched a little bit on that, But for the city, we were able to achieve or receive 3.4 million. We will be, my apologies. We are earmarked for $3.4 million. We've collected 1.4 of that so far, and we're gonna be getting another point, the remaining funds by July 2022. But as I mentioned, this is from the President Biden's plan, which was called ARPA, or the American Recovery Act, to stimulate and help local, state, and federal governments. And San Marino was able to receive that $3.4 million. Lastly, as I mentioned, we do have some large capital projects in the pipeline. San Marino Center is one of them. And we also have stormwater and some of the wastewater projects. These are big infrastructure projects that are very necessary to keep the community in good condition, but it's a necessity. So we will be investing quite a bit of that for those projects as well in the near horizon. So really, I open it up. Yes.
I just want to have one more thing, because I'm a private sector person, and Paul, I really appreciate your leadership and working with you, and for the community to know, my first year on council, when it was budget time, we got a 5-inch binder, and it was a binder flip to see how many rolls of toilet paper were used in what departments. And with Paul's leadership, we now have, going through the budgeting process, we actually look at what was accomplished last year and what it cost and what the goals are for this next year and what it might cost and what the budget would be. So we have a framework and a context to look at what services were delivered, what the challenges are, and what services we want to deliver. And our budgeting process now is really, really tight. And Paul, I'm surprised you didn't mention that you are now on your 3rd year of a perfectly clean audit. Yeah, all right. So with Paul's leadership in the budgeting process, the auditors come in at the end of the year, and before we would have some questions, but for the last 3 years, it's been a clean audit. So I mean, that just speaks so highly to the respect I think staff has and council has for how we, as Paul said with his beginning of his presentation, how we take money in, like it's our own, and we spend it like it's our own, and the budgeting process is tight, the audits are clean, and I think staff's doing a great job, and I really trust them. So thank you.
Well, thank you, council member. And I just wanted to express that it's just not me, myself. This is a whole team behind me, from finance, from my manager, Mark Siegfried, to Lisa and Diana, to just the whole team, and the city hall too in general, because we finance scrutinize, all the transactions that come through and make sure that it's done properly, and so that we can continue getting a clean audit. So that's, I just can't take credit myself. And also, of course, all the input that I get from Councilmember Udi, but also Mayor Susan Jakuboski as well, to help assist and just improve the process. So thank you. And so just kind of tying this all into what we need your input on, and basically all the kind of current budget that I just expressed to you, we're developing our next year's budget. As I mentioned, it's a team effort. Everybody gets involved in the budget process, and we want the community to get involved as well, because it is your money, and we want to make sure we satisfy your needs for next year. And so just kind of touching on some of the highlights of important dates. Currently, right now, our website is open for community input for the budget process. It is closing on February 11th. So if you can go to our city's website and take the budget priority initiative survey, we would really appreciate that. That gives us the input and the necessary information and data to produce a good budget for the community. And then there's February 25th is when we gather all that information and we present to the city council the fiscal year 22-23's priority initiative selections. And then we will jump into March 18th and 25th for the CIP budget study session, where we're talking about all the various new projects, CIP projects that are coming on board next year. And then on April 22 and 29, we'll be presenting to the city council our operating budget. And then the last piece will be coming back on May 27th with everything put together into a nice budget book and presenting it to the city council for their final approval and adoption of the budget for next year. And I believe that concludes my presentation. I'm opening it up for question and answers for any of the community members that have questions for us.
Thank you, Paul, for that great presentation. So we'll go ahead and get into Q&A now. So just as a reminder to everybody to please use the Q&A box to submit your questions. We'll answer them. Paul, so the first question we have is, what accounts for the other revenues of the 12%, the second biggest revenue source? What are the top contributors to the other revenues? Are they parking tickets or other fees or, what have you?
No, that's a great question. It is not parking tickets. We don't issue that many parking tickets, to be honest. And I do push the chief to do that, but there's a fire truck. There goes our services in action.
Paul's still at work tonight. That's good.
Yes, I am working overtime. No, for other revenues, really, even though it looks like a big number, what we include there in that category is what we call VLF or vehicle license fees. So it is in lieu of property taxes, we get this VLF. And so that's a big contributor. That's about almost close to $2 million. And the rest of the other revenues are actually really small. Parking tickets is part of that, but it's only about $30,000. So it's a very small revenue source for parking tickets.
It was interesting when, Paul, when you put up that pie chart of revenue, Marcella and I were texting back and forth a little bit. And, we are really blessed in San Marino because such a high percentage of our income or revenue is fixed, right? It's property taxes. But then you mentioned gas taxes and a few other ones I go, oh, those are fixed. So really, it almost comes down to sales tax is our biggest variable, which is a sliver in our revenue stream.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Less than 1%.
San Marino has is, when we budget expenses, we really know what our revenue stream is to support those expenses. Where other cities, if you got, sales tax and I don't know, NFL football, Super Bowl tax and things like that, those go up and down, but we are just boring as all get out. And it's nice and stable that we can really budget and predict what our future looks like.
No, I mean, I know my hair looks black, but if we had fluctuating revenues, I probably would have a lot more white hair because I would have a hard time trying to predict how our revenue sources are. So no, we are very fortunate that our revenues are very stable, very predictable, makes my job easier. Yes.
That was a great question. So, keep those coming. That was a good one. We have some questions that we've had come in prior to the town hall tonight. So one of the first ones we have is, what is the role of city council and city staff in developing the budget? So perhaps each of you on our panel could speak to maybe what your personal responsibilities are for our attendees.
I can kick that off. That's a great question. It is a team effort, as finance director has indicated. So one of the most important things that the city council has to do as a responsibility is to adopt an operating and capital budget. It is a critical function. And one of the most important jobs that I have as city manager per the city's municipal code is to recommend and present the budget. It seems like those things might be exclusive, that it falls to the city manager to put the budget together, obviously working closely with Finance Director Chung and his staff that he's already talked about, and then recommend whatever I think is appropriate to the city council. And then the city council completely independently reviews the budget and makes their own decision. But in truth, there's really a lot more back and forth than that. As I think most members of the community know, the city council has liaisons to various roles, and finance and budget is one of them. And as both Paul and I have indicated earlier this evening, Councilmember Udi and current Mayor Jacobowski have served as our budget and finance liaisons for several years now, providing some incredible guidance and consistency as we work together, build trust, and have developed this process. So Paul and I are in constant contact with the budget and finance liaisons to bounce ideas off them, think about ways to present information that will make sense so that by the time the budget proposal from the city manager gets to the city council, it's not a shock. Nobody's surprised by what they see, and we feel pretty good about the product as something that's a joint endeavor. So the technical answer is that it's the city manager's authority and responsibility to recommend a budget, and it is the city council's responsibility and authority to adopt whatever budget they are comfortable with, but there really is a lot of blend. Councilmember, do you want to add some to that?
Yeah, I mean, this whole budgeting stuff is, it is really important. It's a big deal. And let me just give you an example, and it's probably the reason I ran. With the streets, if you had streets in good condition, it would take $800,000 a year to slurry coat the streets to keep them in good condition. But before this team got here, prior teams didn't appreciate the importance of capital, or CapEx, the capital, maintaining the assets. So rather than $800,000 a year to slurry coat every year, we're faced with a $45 to a $50 million bill to get our streets back up and going. It's going to take 10 years. It's going to take 10 years because prior administrations, prior councils, prior staff didn't appreciate the value of the assets and what it takes to maintain them, just like your own home. You got to paint it, you got to put a new roof on every once in a while, you got to maintain it. So with this whole budgeting process, this is why I was passionate about scraping off that $15 million into the capital improvement program. And we've been able to layer in what Paul and I are $8 million on top of that to take care of streets, roads, sewers, San Marino centers, city halls, Stoneman's, police departments, fire trucks, cars, radar, all that stuff. So, I think with this whole, what makes sense with Paul, your C letter on what makes sense is understanding what the near-term costs are and the long-term costs are on running the business, because this is a $30 million a year business that this group is running for the benefit of the citizens.
I think the only thing I wanted to add to that is regards to just the budget process itself, as Councilmember Udi mentioned, it's really, there's the long-term forecasting, trying to make sure that we're spending the money now so that costs, we don't look past some of the savings that you might reap this year so that you're not paying for it later, because things tend to get more expensive later. I think planning, budget really is that plan, making sure that we plan properly so that we utilize these funds to the best of our abilities. And I think that's why we put so much energy and effort creating the budget. If we didn't care about the community or how the money is spent, then it could probably be a 1 month time horizon packaging a budget. I could get the numbers together, but that's not the case. We take a good 4 or 5 months time to put this budget together. And I just think that's how significant it is and important it is to the community.
And we also had the foundation of a crazy, stupid, really long-term financial planning group with some smart people in town that looked at what, Paul, 20 years or something like that?
29 years.
29 years.
Yes.
So we're not budgeting for this year, next year. We got good visibility on, your grandkids' future. And, the city, Paul, we have what, $36 million in the bank today?
Yeah,
And
it fluctuates, but yes.
And last year at this time, it was $33 million.
Yeah, our overall cash has gone up about $3 million. Yes.
Yeah, and the year before that, it was 30 million. So we got more money in the bank today than the city has ever had. And we've got $23 million allocated towards capital improvement that take care of streets, roads, sewers, San Marino Center, City Hall, police cars, all of that type of stuff. So, I think we really have a very balanced and professional look at income and outcome and operating budgets and CapEx. And I feel really, really confident in this team and how it's performing.
Excellent. So we have another, actually we have two questions in the chat, the Q&A now. So the first one is, how do you see the multifamily unit requirement impacting the 2022 budget or 2023 budget? Is the city allocating money to buy lots and hire contractors to build MTU, et cetera? Perhaps Councilmember Udi, you want to start that?
Fantastic.
Oh, that is a moving target, and that will not impact the fiscal budget at all. That'll impact your heartache, but not the fiscal budget. And I think too that this, this SB 9, all this stuff, it's a crazy moving thing right now. And to try to create lower income housing in San Marino is, in my mind, that's kind of a tough thing for the state to try to mandate. And I think that, there's going to be a lot of moving parts. So I would not worry about that with our budgeting process at all. But I would encourage you to stay on top of it and let your state elected folks know that it's a big deal to you and to protect the community that we have.
Well answered. And the second question is, I think along the similar lines, but Paul, this might be getting more into kind of our revenue sources and how that's affected. But how will the addition of new residences, ADUs, and second units impact the budget? How much and when? So are property taxes affected by this, or or will the influx of additional residents perhaps? Do you anticipate any sort of change?
I think I kind of want to mirror what Councilmember Udi mentioned, as these new rules change to the degree that it's hard for me to at least forecast. Now, of course, when you hypothetically split a lot, and let's say you sell that lot, then it will be assessed at a higher value. So if we're talking property taxes, that will be bringing in additional revenue into the city, or higher revenues than historically, being that whatever value that you were assessed at is what the property taxes that the community pays for. So to answer that question, yes, I believe that if ADUs or any property lots splits that bring in additional various homes, more homes, multi-homes, yes, it will bring more property taxes. But I believe, at least for me, looking at San Marino, I would want to cherish the way San Marino is, because it's beautiful. When I drive around it and personally run around the community, it's such a beautiful community too. And I would want to keep it that way. If that would be my preference, of course.
Well answered as well. I have a question that came in, not in the chat box, but before this. So we've received a few questions from residents who are concerned about how COVID-19 has impacted the city's budget. So any concerns on that, or?
I could take that question. I believe I touched a little bit of that regards to COVID-19. I mean, we were very, probably one of the rare cities that were able to really dodge that fiscal impact from COVID, as a lot of the closures, as I mentioned. We do have a small business district, so sales taxes is very small portion of the revenues that come in. So yes.
Paul, two questions. You just did the report for the city council meeting this week. What was the total extra expenses because of COVID for this year?
Well, expenses has gone down because of COVID, yes.
No, I mean, we had COVID related expenses was like, what, $300,000 plus or minus? And
okay.
And then what is the Joe Biden administration going to give the city to cover our COVID expenses?
$3.4 million.
Okay, so we got $300,000 worth of expenses and $3 million worth of I don't want to be paying those taxes coming in, right?
Yeah. No, I think the way I view COVID in regards to the impact to the budget, it's a double-edged sword, meaning, yes, our revenues weren't impacted. We did get money from the government, and we will get that last bucket of money from Biden. But then the other side of the sword is that, yes, recreation services, some of our services had to be cut back because of the spread of COVID. Recreation library was closed for, the first year. And then we also feel it in some of our departments, such as planning department, where there has been some turnover and whatnot regards to it. And I think the community does feel that when they come to the counter to ask for services, because we've been trying to hire, and hiring has been a challenge too regards to COVID. So I think there's that double-edged sword regards to it. But regards to the budget, the city overall haven't been impacted much.
Yeah, I think there are two answers on the COVID impact with the city. One is you have delivering services. And yes, with people getting sick for a period of time, services, service level is down a little bit. Yeah. And then the other one is the budget impact. And the budget impact, it's been, pick a number, I'll say 70%. It's not been a 100% type thing. And because revenue's down, but expenses are down. And then we've got the federal relief coming in. So overall, the net impact of COVID to the city's finances is, Paul, what, plus $2 million?
If you take the net, yes.
Yeah.
Great.
So on April 15th, when you write your check, we really didn't need $2 million in support.
Oh, goodness. Well, I do want to check in with our interpreter, Yanan, who's been doing a wonderful job, I'm sure, on our Chinese channel, just to make sure that none of our Chinese speaking residents have any questions. None. Okay. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you and your services tonight. So I think I will go ahead and turn it over to Marcella, who has some things to say about keeping in touch, and just thank you everybody for your questions. This has been really great.
And just let me interrupt before Marcella takes over, because I want to be, respectful of your time, but also very thankful for the staff. Nicole did a great job moderating. And for the interpreter, thank you very much. And, I'm a business guy by training, and I feel really comfortable that Paul and Mark and their team are doing a great job. And with Marcel and the leadership, we are looking out, or they are looking out after every penny of yours, and we're trying to redeploy that in the most productive way possible to help out the city. So, I want to say that, Marcella, before you had a chance to say goodnight to people, because it's hard to trump that afterwards. So Paul, Mark, Marcella, Mario, John, Michael, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That is very gracious, council member. Thank you so much. Okay, sorry, I'm all flustered. Okay. All right. So if you are not signed up for our weekly briefing or emergency alerts or following us on social media, then I'm here to tell you that you are missing out. You may have noticed in the last couple months, there has been an increase in the quantity and quality of our communication and engagement efforts. And I want to do my own big shout out to Nicole Quadras, who you see here. She is our new community engagement manager. She has only been here for a couple months. And I want to give a super huge shout out to somebody that you do not see tonight, that is Miss Lily Louder. She is a communication specialist in my office, and she is responsible for most of the flyers you see and most of the increase in social media that you have seen. If you are impressed by what we are doing, it is Lily that you are impressed by, and I am as well, and we are very grateful to have her as part of our team. So big shout out to her. If you want to get into the know and know what's going on, you can sign up for our emails by texting the keywords on the slide here. You can search for us on social media platforms. We are bound and determined to get into 2022 and be all sorts of digitally savvy. And of course, if none of those work for you, you can always just email me at citymanageroffice@cityofsanmarino.org, and we will get you signed up for our newsletter. I also want to highlight a couple of key announcements for what's going on at the moment. The Parks and Public Works Department is collecting some feedback right now to improve traffic safety. This is something that is very important to our community. And so if you would like to provide your feedback, and I know many of you would like to do that, please don't hesitate to complete their survey by February 11th. That also coincidentally is the same deadline for our budget survey as well. So this Friday is a big day to give us some feedback. You may also have seen that in honor of Valentine's Day, we are asking residents to share your stories of how San Marino has impacted your love story. So if you have stories about that, and we have gotten a few, even from some people that are at this meeting tonight, we really appreciate it. Send in your thoughts in a photo. You can send it to the city manager's office. Nicole has posted that in the chat box, that email address again, citymanageroffice@cityofsanmarino.org. The Community Development Department is still seeking applicants to serve on the General Plan Update Steering Committee. This is an incredibly important initiative that will affect the way that San Marino looks for years to come. This is not just a planning document. We need people that can think big about who San Marino is going to be in 10, 20 years. If you are interested in providing us with that information, please go ahead and head over to our website and apply for that committee as well. Those applications are due next Tuesday on February 15th. Community Services is looking for volunteers for our 47th annual All-City Track and Field Meet. You are accustomed to seeing that a little earlier in the year, but because of COVID needs, we've pushed it out to March 18th in the hopes that we can still do it this year and not have to actually cancel it. So if you're interested in helping out with that, you can apply online as well. And last but not least, if you are passionate about community involvement and you've been so impressed by the meeting tonight and you want to keep it going for the rest of the night, our Public Safety Commission meets in 9 minutes. It is a different Zoom link, but you can get to that on our website, and you can join the Public Safety Commission meeting for tonight and provide your thoughts to them. And I know that we have at least one Public Safety Commissioner on this meeting tonight. So thank you so much and feel free to participate there. That is a wrap on our town hall meeting tonight. And I just want to say that I am so excited tonight. I really feel like celebrating. Those of you who have joined our town hall meetings before know that we do a different meeting each month on a different topic that we think might be interesting. We have done our February town hall meeting on the budget every year for, I believe, 3 years now. And I must tell you that this is the best attendance and participation that we have ever gotten in a budget meeting. And these are some excellent questions, and we are so excited. And I think that this is a major victory for Lily and Nicole's communication and engagement efforts, and also for the fantastic work of Yanan, who is helping us so much with the interpretation. We are getting excellent responses to the quality of her translation, and we are so delighted to be able to make this information available to more of our community. And thank you so much for coming. I cannot express my gratitude. I want to thank Finance Director Chung for staying at work a little bit longer tonight than usual. And I want to thank Councilmember Yudi, who took some time out from his evening to join us, even though he's probably got a long council meeting to look forward to on Wednesday night. And of course, Community Engagement Manager Quadras for hosting us through this evening tonight. If you have any follow-up questions at all, please don't hesitate to email or call us. If you got here a little late because you heard what an amazing town hall we were having and you wanted to tune in, this is recorded and it will be up on our website probably tomorrow, Wednesday at the latest. So don't hesitate to come back and watch the rerun and pass it along to your friends, and we can get some good feedback on the budget. And of course, as a reminder, that feedback is due this Friday, February 11th. So the link is in the chat, as you've seen so far, along with links to sign up for our emails, a summary of our announcements and upcoming events. So you have all that information available to you. And since we've done so many different things for tonight's town hall meeting, we think that we've gotten this right. When you exit the webinar, your web browser should open with a short survey. We'll see. If it doesn't, we'll know that that needs a little bit of tweaking, but we're trying to get some feedback on what you thought about this town hall meeting, maybe where you heard about it, and anything else that you'd like to tell us, and whatever you'd like to hear in future town hall meetings. So thanks for joining us tonight and learning a little bit more about the budget and sharing some thoughts with us. Thank you to everybody who is here tonight, and good night. Have a great evening, everybody. Take care.